Welcome to the Lifestwists Show with your hosts, Terry Robinson, Lance Conley, and Eric Harrison.
Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays. We are glad to be here this evening. We have another wonderful show for you. And we, you know what, we have been getting tremendous response from people all over the country as we talk about athlete transition stress and all the things that come from it and how it still affects people's lives even well after they're done playing the sport. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my partners in crime, my left and right wing, man. Without them, this thing would not be possible. So the first man I'm going to introduce is my main man, Lance Conley. What's up, Lance? How you feeling today?
Good, Eric. I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday, and it's good to be back for our sixth show. And we got a great show in front of us, and definitely look forward to it.
Great. And like I said, last but not least, I've had the pleasure of knowing this gentleman for a very long time. As a matter of fact, he's probably got some stories about me that, I would definitely have to kill him if he told them. So he's on this secrecy. But, this is my main man, Terry Robinson. What's up, T? How you feeling, man?
All right. How you guys doing today?
Beautiful.
Good.
So, you know what? We're not going to waste any time. We're just going to jump right into it. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Terry because, this is a pretty serious subject that we have tonight. And we're just going to jump right in. So go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, tonight, I guess, we talked about focusing on a couple of different situations. You have one who, Rashaan, Salaam, who was a NFL player for the Chicago Bears, who just died just over a week ago, committed suicide. And then we have Kevin Wilson, who was a coach at the University of Indiana, that was having issues with players. And so, we talk about the different levels of depression and trauma that people experience, and these are the two cases that we want to focus on. Of course, we if we get some callers calling in talking about some personal situations, we can deal with that too in our own stuff. But just focusing on Kevin Wilson, I like to start on him first because I tried to dig in and try to get a feel for what was going on with this guy. He was a coach, and he's had some years coaching. He also played, college football at North Carolina. And I don't know if he was a starter or somebody coming off the bench, but he did play 4 years at North Carolina. I'm assuming he played. And then after that, he got a couple of coaching jobs and, as grad assistant at North Carolina. And then he went on and did some more assistant coaches at a few schools. Then he finally got his own opportunity to be a head coach. And so I'm saying all this just build a foundation and just get a little background. So when we break out in the discussion, we can really go there. And so by the time he became a head coach, I don't think he did that well because he was less. He had twice as many losses as wins. And the reason why I say that, not to knock him, because I don't know the total situation. I'm just based on the information that I've gotten. I can understand him being frustrated, because of his winning situation. And so he started having issues with some of his players at the University of Indiana, where players were saying, "Well, you really don't care about me." And so as I try to read between the lines, based on my experience and based on what I was reading, I look at it in a couple of different ways. Because for one, I'm trying to figure out the players that are saying he doesn't really care about them. Because I read a couple of different players, because it started out with one player that wasn't really playing a whole lot in the first place. So a lot of times when you have guys coming off the bench or barely even playing, they don't really care about you. I've been that guy before. Fortunately, I never got hurt, and so I didn't have to go through the extreme circumstances that particular guy went through. Then you have your starters, because you have some starters. You actually have an NFL player that played under him and said, "Well, I don't understand it because he treated me well. I've never had a situation like that. And when I was hurt, he was always telling me, do not play hurt. do whatever you need to do to get back in shape, and we're gonna go there. But like once again, if you're one of those guys that's low on the totem pole, there's an issue there because for one, he in his mind as a coach, and as somebody trying to climb the ladder, he's thinking, well, I'm spending money on this scholarship when I should be able to get rid of you because he kept saying, I'm paying $70,000 for you. You need to be out here on the field playing, whether you're hurt or not. And so when you're hearing that, it's like read between the lines. Why would he say that to a young man that was brought to the school to play? And that's because he feels like he's not worthy. He can be using that scholarship, giving that scholarship to somebody that could be producing for the school. And so I think that's what happens. And a lot of times coaches try to run certain individuals off, and then there's those individuals that you can't run off because they're connected with the team or the school in some kind of way. So it's kind of hard. It's a kind of tricky thing, and a lot of coaches, some of them don't come out and say it, but sometimes that's what happens. Because I had a good friend of mine that's real versed in how sports work. And I said, man, I sat on the bench at my school for a couple of years, and I was mad. And I said, and my coach, he got rid of some players, but he never got rid of me. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you why. He said, first of all, he knew that you were one of the leaders. Second of all, he thought he would make it so miserable for you that you would have just quit, and you never quit. And we laughed about it. I said, you know what? Wow. I never looked at it that way.
Wow.
Because he wanted me to quit, but he knew the connection I had with the players because I was still kind of a leader of the guys, and everybody kind of looked to me for a lot of different things. And so he just assumed that he would make the situation so bad for me that I would just quit. You have to be a fool to just stay and put up with this. And I did that. I don't look at it as being a fool, but I see it from a different perspective than what I saw, than how I saw it when I was younger. And so, because these are the games that a lot of people play. And so part of our mission is to educate not just the players, but the parents and all the people that are concerned about these athletes. Because, why would you put your kid in a situation where they're going to be traumatized for the rest of their lives? Because that's what eventually happens with a lot of these guys and females that are athletes playing on these different levels of sports. They become traumatized, and people think just because it's a sport that, it's just a sport. No, it's more than that because you dedicate your whole life to it. And so I'm saying that to give a background because eventually we'll move on to the Rashaan Salaam because when we go there, here's a guy that was the best of the best. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. How many people can say that? But, in spite of all of that, he still felt like he didn't do enough. And so we'll delve into that a little bit later. But I wanted to give a background on this Kevin Wilson situation and get some feedback from you guys. You know what I mean? What? Because we talked about this a little bit, and like I said, I'm trying to understand the dynamics of what was going on because I think it happens across the country, almost every school, just about. Not every school, but a good majority of them, especially when you have a coach that's trying to create a legacy. A lot of times they so focused on what they're trying to do that they do just walk over people, and they don't treat them the way they should be treated. So,
exactly.
So what?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know, Terry. My opinion on that is here you have a coach, Kevin Wilson, that, is probably 45, 50 years old, been in football for his whole life. Like you said, he's played, been an assistant at big-time programs. I believe he was at Oklahoma, too, before he finally went to Indiana, where, Indiana is definitely a basketball school and never had a history of, winning in football. And so, obviously, there's a lot of pressure on him. But the problem I have with coaches in that situation is here you have a 17, 18-year-old high school student that is being recruited and is being told that, if you come here, we'll take care of you. We have your best interests in mind. You'll get your education, and we'll make this experience of football the best possible. But it seems that the minute they step on campus, the expectations change. All of a sudden, football is priority number one. Sometimes classroom is priority number two. A person like him who got hurt his freshman year, and he knew he was hurt, and he was telling people he was hurt. Here you have a head coach, and you have trainers telling the kid to work through it. You know what I mean? He said, "Hey, I'm hurt. I know I'm hurt. And they continue to push and push. And my problem with it is these are people we're talking about. All of a sudden you have a 19, 20-year-old kid that has back problems because adults, it was more important for him to be on the field than for him to be taken care of medically. And now he's going to have medical issues. He's going to have emotional issues, because I think he even said in the story that I read is that he battled depression. He went back to his dorm room and he kind of just hung out there, stayed there, and kind of isolated himself because, that was an experience that he basically said, this coach took my dream away. And, in that situation, 45, 50 years old, and most coaches are in that age group, not advocate or do what's best for kids in that situation. The only thing I can think about it's about them. They do not see these players as people, but rather as commodities or something to advance themselves. And I think that's where, as a society and a lot of these institutions, where we go wrong. We forget these are people.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of them, what you're describing is a bully. A lot of them are bullies. They know who to bully. You know what I mean? They know who to bully, because certain players they're not going to do that to. I don't care where you are. It's certain players they would never even do that. They wouldn't even think about doing it. But there are certain players that they know they can do it and get away with it. You know what I mean? So and I'm telling you, and those kids that he did, because he, like you said, he isolated those kids, put them under a tent, while everybody else was playing, to try to make them look less than. Certain players would have been like, I'm not going under that tent. I wish I would go under that tent. You'll be under the tent before I would. That's kind of how my mentality was. I'm not going under the tent. Really? No. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we'll figure it out. But why should I have to do that?
And what kind of coach would sit on the field and yell at the kid and say, we're paying you $70,000, $80,000 to come here. You need to play. So basically, in an indirect way, it's telling the kid, it's not about your education, for you to educate and further yourself, but it's more about you're here to play football, and that's all we care about. And again, it just gives messages.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Remember, did you read where the dad, they went back to the school, and they set up a meeting, and the dad and his son, they thought, well, we'll go out and try to at least work some of this out, even though my son said he doesn't want to come back here. But we'll sit down and we'll try to talk it out. And they said they went to the meeting, and the meeting was all about, where your son leaves right now, it's going to screw up our statistics on our academics. So he should at least stay until the semester is over. And they were shocked. They said, really? All this we just went through, and this is the reason why y'all called us in. It wasn't about the treatment towards my son, or what you did. It's about your stats in academics, because this kid was obviously, performing well in the classroom, so they needed him for that more than anything. And that's why he would make these comments to him. I'm reading between the lines, but I'm assuming that's why they held him on the team, because they needed him and his academics to make them look good. So they kind of using them. But the kid obviously know that, and the parents know that.
Right.
Exactly. And I think he even made the comments that, and some players even said that he was the type of coach that if you didn't have a good experience and you were looking for a different school, he would actually sabotage you and tell other coaches, like, hey, he's an injury risk, you don't want him, or he's an academic problem, almost, making a situation for a kid like that he has no options. And that's what coaches do. They hold you hostage. And so here you have a kid that's hurt, isn't liking his experience at school, has coaches telling him things that he doesn't like, and yet they won't let him explore his options. So it's really, when you get into those institutions and you're talking about the money that, college football is about and the pressure that are on some of those coaches, because the truth is, a person like Kevin Wilson's at Indiana, he's looking for the next big job. You know what I mean? And so it's not necessarily about the kids. It's necessarily about, I need to win, turn this program around so I can go coach at a Alabama or a Oklahoma or someplace like that. And that's what happens. And I think it's an institutional societal problem that,
it is.
that the adults have to change.
Yeah.
It is, but we have to bring this up to the forefront because most people don't talk about it. If you're part of that culture, you can't really talk about it because if you do, you blackball. Now you can't get a coaching job. Trust me. Remember a couple of shows ago, this is what I was saying, that I went through with a kid that went to my alma mater, where he wasn't, happy where he was, and he went and approached the coach and told him he wanted to leave, and the coach told him, if you leave, you don't have to worry about it. You won't be able to play nowhere, and I will make sure you don't get any other place to play. And he came to me, and I said, well, I don't know. I can try to reach out to somebody and help you, the best way I can because I understand where these kids come from. If they don't get an opportunity, they're going right back to where they came from, which is not a lot. And so, of course, I try to help the kid in good faith, and then it comes back to me like I'm doing something wrong or I'm trying to get kids to transfer from the university. And then it even got deeper than that, and I never told you guys about this, but my friend that tried to help me out, they ended up cornering him at the Final Four and saying, just tried to make him look bad, and I don't even know how to even trace that. But my friend contacted me and said, man, these guys cornered me, and these are some high-powered coaches. I'm not going to put their name out there yet, but they approached him at the Final Four and confronted him on that for trying to help this kid. It was just ridiculous. I couldn't believe it because I'm thinking like, wow, is it that serious? Is it that serious?
Yeah,
they told him, you want to get a coaching job, you'll never get a coaching job. Huh?
Wow. That's why it's so difficult because the coaching ranks as a fraternity. And if one coach says something bad about you, pretty much all the other coaches kind of stay away from you. So it really limits your options. And again, I think a system that should be friendly to kids, especially 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, is a system that's set up to almost, keep them in a world that they almost like a prison almost. It's like, it's a shame that it has to happen. But, and I guess I want you guys to think, because we talked a little bit about this before too, because, and a good thing about this situation is the parent was involved. The parent went to the coach and sat down and talked to the coach. But the hard thing for these kids is how do you decipher between a coach that has your interest versus a coach that once you get on campus, you're like, wow, this has really changed. And I know, Terry, I know I've talked to you personally about that. You kind of shared your experience that, you had an assistant recruiting you. And once you stepped on campus, you're like, wow, this isn't anything like I thought it would be. Here you have an assistant coach that says you got to pass it 5 times before you can shoot it, or they stick you down in the post. You're like, man, what do I do now? Do you feel stuck? What's that thought process like as a player when you're in that situation?
Well, I think what we do is when we're in any same thing we do in any other uncomfortable situation. We numb ourselves to our reality. You find a way to numb yourself to a reality. So what did I do? And my friends, because they were in similar, we came together. We experienced very similar situations. What did? We went out and had fun. We hung out and laughed and played to try to numb ourselves to reality instead of sitting down and focusing on why we're here in the first place. But see, we didn't have that type of structure there, so we didn't do that. So what did we do? The next best thing, we went out and had fun every day, every night. How do you deal with something that's uncomfortable, especially when you're that young? I'm fortunate that I just didn't get into drugs and alcohol, because if I would, I probably would have been the best one at it, going through what I was going through emotionally, because I had no clue, and I was just a kid. A lot of times, when you haven't been groomed to do that and you're fortunate to go there, you can run into some serious problems, because you look at the people that are groomed. A lot of the individuals that are groomed, they already know what to expect. They have a better idea. They go into a good program, a solid program, and they don't have the same experience, as I had, or a lot of people in my situation.
Sometimes people have the perception of that, and like we talked about a little bit last week with Coach K. But, as I was reading about, this kid's situation in Indiana, there's something that came up about Jimmy Boeheim at Syracuse, how, a lot of times with the kids that were unhappy in his program, he would hold academics over their heads. Like, if you want to transfer or you want to leave, I'm going to tell all the other coaches that you're an academic risk. You had the coach at North Carolina that was allowing players to basically get fake grades. And, of course, the university gets off. They keep playing basketball. They keep winning championships. They, keep bringing recruits in. But what about the kids that lose? I mean, if you're going to North Carolina to play basketball, that's great. What happens if you don't make the NBA? We already said that 88% of college kids don't go beyond the college ranks. That's 1 in 12 or something like that actually gets the opportunity to play some type of professional sport. And all of a sudden you're sitting there with no degree and really missed out on the college experience as far as advancing yourself academically, given opportunities beyond basketball. Again, I think we have adults or coaches that are in positions that are setting a standard that isn't necessarily kid-friendly. And, so hopefully that changes. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we address it and discuss how the impact, this has on the kids, because eventually those kids leave college. And what are they left with? Like this kid from Indiana, his dream's gone. Exactly. What's he going to do now?
Exactly.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a beautiful thing that we're doing what we're doing because we're going to educate some people, and we're going to educate the people that we need to educate. But I always equate it similar to people that are using drugs. They say, hey, that's not good for you. You need to stop using it or stop, abusing alcohol. And it's everywhere. It's a culture. It's so deeply ingrained in our society and who we are as a people that we can talk about it all we want to, but it's only going to be a handful of them that's going to say that decide to do something different about it. It's just like substance abuse. You tell people over and over and over, but what do? They get under pressure, they get under stress, they go right back and do the same thing. So I think it's just a part of our culture, and we, our goal is to, help the people that we can, because some people are going to say, what are you guys talking about? You're going to piss some people off, and some people are going to love it. I mean, it's just how it works. It would be nice if we could, create a system where it was fair and people got treated well, but as long as money is involved, status is involved, as long as those things are involved, we're going to continue to have the same issues. You're going to have coaches, because you have a lot of coaches that are just as broken as the athletes that they get. You know what I mean? A lot of times they can hide behind being able to do, draw X's and O's. Just like basketball players or football players or whatever athletes, we can hide behind athleticism. But after a while, it creeps out. Not very many of us get out of that, without some serious scars. And so I think we kind of hide behind our gifts, the things that we're good at. And coaches do it all the time, because I was looking at, I'm trying to figure out who this coach. I was looking at Tom Brady last night. I'm watching the football game, and I watched before the game. They had this long little deal with this kid that was going through some physical issues, and I said, wow. And my son, he's 9 years old, and he looked and he said, man, why are they doing that with Tom Brady? I said, because they got to make Tom Brady look good. Because at the beginning of the season, guess what? He was on probation.
Exactly.
And so they do a special like this. I said, it's a good thing that they highlighting this kid and something good about him. But what's behind why they're doing what they're doing? And it's because they got to make him look better than what he showed last year. And the reason why he was on, they got to try to erase that. They have to try to erase that. And so these people are good at manipulating, us, making us think that something.
Yeah, exactly. One thing, and one thing too that I want to bring out in all of this, because we're talking about the trauma. We talk about all the things and all the results that other people want to have out of what happens with these coaching decisions, even what you just talked about, Terry, and everything else. But people forget about the trauma and the things that these families go through, not just the player, but the families themselves. I mean, just think about it. Families of people who, like, for instance, we just talked about Rashaan, Salaam, or anybody for that matter, a player that's went through this type of crazy stuff all their career in college, and now they're released out to their family. Their family don't even know what's going on with that person. And they wonder why that person's acting crazy or drinking or doing whatever they're doing just to try to inebriate themselves and get that pain up off of them. So, man, this is a great conversation. And before these guys are rolling, but one thing I want to do before we do anything else is I want to give our call-in number because we want to get you guys involved in this conversation as well. So this is our call-in number. I'm going to say it nice and slow, and then we're going to have to take a break, and then when we come back from the break, I'm going to give you the number again. So here we go. Are you ready? Get your pens, get your phone, pull out your phones. I'm giving you a couple seconds because you need to get involved with this conversation tonight. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Area code 323-642-1579. Again, it is area code 323-642-1579. We need to hear your voice on this. This is something that's really affecting so many people. I think really, guys, to be quite honest, I think this is affecting just about everybody under the sound of our voice, and they may not even realize it. So we're going to just take a quick break here, and then we're going to come right back, and we're going to continue this awesome conversation. See you soon.
Sports is a common denominator in the lives of people everywhere. Our celebration of sports creates an environment that gives athletes an amazing experience that enhances their lives. Athletes work long and hard to be the best at that thing that gives them so much elation. But what happens after the athlete is done? When a circumstance comes up and they're no longer able to play that sport? Whether it's the high school athlete who doesn't get that scholarship to go to the next level, or the college athlete that doesn't get picked in the draft, or even the professional athlete who now has to retire and find something else to do day to day. Many athletes struggle with this transition from competition to regular everyday life. This transition causes trauma, and that trauma often leads to depression, anxiety, anger, and even health issues.
Author Terry Robinson noticed this problem and researched it and came up with the book, Athlete Transition Stress. This book deals with the subconscious programming and conditioning that goes on in an athlete's mind while participating in a sport.
So if you or anyone you know are dealing with these issues related to transitioning from a sport, pick up the book, Athlete Transition Stress, and share your story in our global community online at www.letgroup1.com. Athlete Transition Stress is available on Amazon.com and on the LET Group website at www.letgroup1.com.
Man, guys, the book, Athlete Transition Stress. Everything that we're talking about tonight, everything we talk about on every show, this is what we are deriving everything from. This is where everything is coming from. This is an amazing book by my brother Terry. He really dug deep into some of the hard places where a lot of athletes go once they're done playing the sport. And there's so many different branches that come from this tree, and we try to explore them the best we can every week. So the book is Athlete Transition Stress, and it is available at www.letgroup1.com. Go to the website. Go check out all the stuff that we have out there. We've had the book excerpt. We've got motivational videos. We've got all kinds of stuff out there, so go check us out. Now, I'm going to give you this number again. Hopefully, if you missed it last time, you're going to get it this time because we need you to call in. So here's the number again. You ready? The number, area code 323-642-1579. Again, 323-642-1579. I feel like I'm the guy that announces the lottery on Channel 9 in Chicago at 6 o'clock, man. That's how I feel saying those numbers. But I'm going to say it one more time, 323-642-1579. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to you, Terry, because that was a spirited conversation you and Lance were having.
Well, thank you, Eric. Hey, it is like hitting the lottery when you get your health and strength back. I can tell you that for sure. And no amount of money will make you feel that way. I can put money on that. So, but going back into what we're talking about, we talked a little bit about Kevin Wilson. That we can obviously do a whole show on that, but we want to give it up for Rashaan Salaam, because here's a guy who was groomed pretty much to do what he did, and he was very successful. To become a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, like I said earlier, how many people can say that they've achieved that? To even do something like that, and for him to say that he felt like he was one of the biggest busts of the NFL, I mean, he must have really been down, because he had high expectations of himself, and it's unfortunate that nobody discusses what we discuss on a weekly basis. Because once we start talking about this and really getting athletes and their family members engaged in what we're talking about, hopefully we can prevent some of these issues or deaths or, some of the things that we're experiencing in the last 15, 20 years that I've recognized. I think we can prevent some of these things. For example, if we would have got to this man and been able to present some of the information that we present to him where it makes sense. Because he's somebody who could probably run around this country or even the world speaking to other athletes about what he's went through based on his status alone. And now look at where he is. He's nowhere to be found. He's dead. We can't access him if we wanted to. All we can do is talk about him. You know what I mean? And hopefully we're talking about him in a positive way. Because, when I started reading the story, I was actually looking up, some of the comments people were making. And we live in a heartless world. There were people making comments I couldn't believe. I mean, here's a man that lost his life, somebody's child, and some of the things that I was reading, it was just unbelievable. But you have people that are jealous, just miserable people. They looked at it as, well, he should have had something. He should have had a backup plan. He should have, he made it to the NFL. What else does he want? And he's just another dumb jock, just making comments like this after somebody died. And I said, they just don't get it, because it's ignorance. It's just out of ignorance. I can't really be upset with these individuals, because in order to say that means that you really lack information. You don't know what's going on. And that's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to give people an idea of what's actually going on in the side of the head of an athlete, a former athlete. And this was an elite athlete. He wasn't just an athlete. This was an elite athlete. And had a dad that played professional football. So it was already a given that he had to continue on and continue on his legacy. And I'm sure his dad was proud of him, but internally he probably was thinking, I let my dad down, I let myself down, my brothers and mom and everybody else, my town, because he didn't want to go back to his hometown. Where did he go? Back to the place. Yep. Where did he go? Back to the place where he was comfortable at, where he played football at. And that's what we do. I'm sorry, Lance. Go ahead.
Just the irony of that situation, Terry. He played football at Colorado, and that seemed to be like his comfort zone, because that seemed to be where he had the most success. Obviously, he won his Heisman there, and felt good about his experience there. That seemed to be the place that he kind of gravitated to. And what's even crazier is he's only 2-3 miles from the stadium at a park, and it almost seems like that's where he wanted it to happen. You know what I mean? Like, and the sad thing is it's happening way too often, where young people. This guy's 42 years old, and still has a lot to offer. I know in Iowa, it was about a year ago. We had a football player, Tyler Sash, that played at Iowa and played at the Giants. He's just a small town kid that made it, and he died at 26, 27. It was a drug overdose, but it's happening way too much. The question we have to start asking ourselves is, why is it happening? Why do you have a kid that like Rashaan Salaam, that friends all over the place, all over the world, his teammates, everybody he's connected to had nothing but positive things to say about him, but yet no one could reach out to him or reach him. And one of the things that I think we miss as a society it's easy to overlook is when people experience depression, they're not going to come to you. You know what I mean? One of the signs of depression is isolation. Here you have a guy, and I think some of his friends were even saying it, you know, we haven't talked to him for a while, or he's missed a couple outings. I think he missed the Hall of Fame game in Colorado. I think him and Michael Westbrook, who was a wide receiver for Colorado, were supposed to do a walkout before the game, and he didn't show up. And that's a sure sign of depression. And so all those signs are there. And ultimately what that led to his situation is suicide. And I think as a society and as people around somebody that we care about, that we know is struggling, and we can see the signs of depression, because that's what I'd like to do is educate people, our listeners, you know, whether it's a boyfriend, a mom, a dad, or a brother or sister, you have to know what to look for in depression. And when you see that, you have to go to them. You cannot wait for them to come to you, because they're not going to. That's one of the struggles with depression, is you don't reach out. You guys have any thoughts on that?
No question about it. Like I said, the signs are there. You know, when you were talking about that, you know what came to my mind? I was looking at a 30 for 30 a few months ago, and it was about Daryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden. And Dwight Gooden had a lot of different events he was supposed to show up to, and he just never showed up. And he had a good friend in Dwight, you know, Daryl Strawberry, that confronted him on it. He didn't like it, but he confronted him. And I think a lot of times we have to confront people. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, but if we're going to get to the point where we're trying to save somebody's life, we have to almost confront them. You know what I mean? In a loving way, but you got to confront the issue, you know, because everybody was seeing it, but they're used to him being the man. Nobody wants to confront him because of who he used to be, or the person that, you know, they perceive him to be. But he's still a person. And sometimes we need to hear it. We need to hear it. And if you don't say anything, I mean, they lose their life. Now you're walking around feeling guilty when you saw it. Because we can say that we didn't see it, but we see it.
Yeah.
We see it. And we just need to start calling it like we see it, you know, and being more assertive. Instead of saying back, well, he'll get through it. No, because the depression is so cunning, man. When it jumps on you, I mean, if it gets on you tough enough, it's hard to come out of it without some outside help. You know, some people can ride it out, but obviously these guys can't ride it out because, I mean, the lifestyles are night and day. When you go from being an elite to somebody that's just working with, you know, and I'm not meaning this in a bad way, but somebody that's doing a mentoring program. I mean, it's cool to do mentoring program, but here's a guy that was a professional athlete. So you're looking at what he's doing based on how much money he's making, you know, and he's looking at his friends, they retiring, and they got, you know, they sitting on a whole bunch of money. He's sitting there looking at himself like, man, I was there. And I don't see myself ever getting back there. I mean, so how do you come out of it?
Hey guys,
I
want to ask you both a question, and I want you guys to kind of comment on this, because again, we're kind of talking about trauma, and we're talking about the stuff in the book, and also I'm gonna let you guys talk for a quick second, and then we got a caller that we want to bring in that's on hold, but I really want you guys to just bring this out real quick. So this is the worst type of trauma, right, guys? Because it resulted in a fatality. It resulted in someone's life. Do you think just the whole setup of his career and the things he went through and, you know, how hard he worked and the ups and downs, do you think that had a direct effect on the fact that this man took his life, his own life?
Yeah, just reading the history, I think it matches up perfectly with what Terry was talking about in his book. You know, at a young age, he was already, you know, his dad played football. And at a young age, I think the expectation was for him to be a football player. And, you know, his parents even went out of the way to, you know, drive him 2 hours one way to make sure he went to practice starting high school. And, you know, I think, you know, when you get to a certain point, he's experienced success all the way up until his first or second year in Chicago, because he did experience success in his first year in Chicago. But once he faced that adversity, and, you know, he didn't feel like a part of the team. It's almost like in sports, if you decline in any way or you have a bad year, all of a sudden you're out of the spotlight. I mean, when you go from a Heisman to a first-round draft pick to being a great rookie, and then all of a sudden your second year you kind of fall out of it, it's like, wow, that's the highs to the lows. And like Terry said earlier, depression is a powerful emotion that it's hard to escape. It's hard to get out of.
Exactly.
And, he just never recovered. I mean, the next year he broke his leg, and yet like in Terry's book, he still tried to hang on. He actually went to the XFL and played for the XFL team because he needed that. He needed that high, and he even tried the CFL. And so, and I'll let Terry talk a little bit about that too, because I know we have a talker on the line, so I don't want to take too much time. But go ahead, Terry. I'll let you go ahead and comment on that too.
Well, we're gonna get that caller in, man, and we're gonna pick back up. Cause I know. Once I get talking, I'm long-winded. I'm ready to go with this subject. So let's bring that caller in.
Okay, we're gonna bring him in. Hey, caller, you're on the air. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick? We good. We good.
Good.
I'm Miles. I was just listening to the station, and an athlete came to mind that's actually pretty prevalent. And just you guys were talking about trauma and things like that, and what actually pushed this guy to take his life. And what came to mind was Johnny Manziel, because he had gotten to the point where his own father went to ESPN and said, if we don't get something done soon, he's going to die.
Wow.
And, the thing that came to mind was when your own father is going for help to the biggest sportscaster, he's going to the world for help. And he couldn't reach his son. Like you said, the first sign of depression is isolation. So he went from bigger than life to now rock bottom in the matter of years and months, really. So that was just my input on the conversation. Is Johnny Manziel a victim of this trauma that we're talking about, that you guys are talking about?
Go ahead, T.
That's a great question. That's a great question because, honestly, I watched the Heisman Trophy presentation the other night, and I was surprised to see him there. He was the first person in line. So there's Johnny. But if you listen to, if you paying attention to him, because you're right on the money. Here's somebody who's been drinking and doing whatever. I mean, it's all out there. So why is he doing this? Because that's the question. Because he comes from money. So it's not about the money, And I wonder too. Why? Why is this guy doing this? But once you're in a position where you do feel like you're bigger than life, and everybody puts you on this pedestal, I mean, you want to ride that as long as you can. You want to ride that as long as you can. Then he finds himself in a program or on a team that hasn't won in 50 years. And now he has this high expectations for him to turn it around. I mean, and he couldn't do it for whatever reason. It wasn't just about him. You're playing a team sport. But, guys, we have to realize, when you're an athlete and at that level, your ego has to be big. It has to be. But you don't have – and who do we surround ourselves with? We should be surrounding ourselves with good people, but especially when you get to that status, you need some really good people around you that really care about you and not your status and not your whoever we think you are. You need the right people around you. So I think a lot of times we surround ourselves by the wrong people, and then they're constantly feeding our egos and feeding us the wrong stuff, and then we become out of control. Once you become out of control, you got to be taken. You almost have to go somewhere and be isolated. You almost have to just to get your mind right. And I don't mean him personally isolating himself, but he needs to be in a program where he's isolated from the general public so he can get his mind right. Because if he don't, we will be reading about him. Because how do you ever bounce back from where he was? When he was at Texas A&M, I mean, he was the man. I mean, he couldn't do no wrong. And that's the same thing Salaam said. He said, He said the worst time of my life when I was in Chicago. Before that, my life was perfect. He said my life was perfect. So I'm sure Johnny Manziel said the same thing. It had to be, because this man he wouldn't want anything.
In Johnny's situation too, it's interesting because he had that superstar syndrome. I think he wanted to be, at every party, be at every function that he could, because one of the things that, just reading up a little bit about him, because it's definitely a great question, because Johnny is a unique situation, because I know, Terry, you were an addiction counselor, and when you have an athlete like that gets involved, and we've heard him using alcohol, some pretty serious drugs and stuff like that. I think addiction's a pretty powerful thing, and it definitely affects the decision making. And in Johnny's case, it's impacted his career. I've heard stories where he was at the Peyton Manning or Archie Manning football camp for quarterbacks, and they had to kick him out of the camp because he wouldn't show up. This is when he was at Texas A&M, and he'd help out at the camp. He wouldn't show up until the next morning and be late because he was out drinking and having a good time all night. So all that stuff started pretty early for him when he was at A&M, and he did. He's seen the stars. I mean, he was about having a good time. When you're using those powerful drugs, addiction is powerful, and it'll be interesting to see how his story turns out.
Yeah, but
if he gets the help he needs.
What I think he ran to Lance and Miles and Eric. That type of person. First of all, because you look at like people that come out of poverty, they got something to prove. People that come from a spoon, they got something to prove too, because everybody saying, "Oh man, you ain't gonna do nothing, man. Man, your father rich. I don't even know why you're out here. You weak." So he always has to live up, has to deal with that, and so he's trying to prove something. So he got to hang out with this group over here, so he don't come across as being Richie Rich. I'm just gonna be a wild guy. You know what I mean? So I don't have to be considered somebody that that, like I said, Richie Rich, because most of the guys that he competes with, they don't come from that. And so how do you compete in a world like that where you got people constantly talking crazy to you because you came from something and they probably didn't come from as much? So it's almost like a jealousy type thing, because I remember feeling that. I got around people that came from something like, man, who are you? Where you come from? So we always feel like we got to prove something. So I'm sure that's how he stepped on the other side of the track or the line, and it's eating him alive. It's eating him alive because he's not supposed to be over there. You know what I mean? Exactly. You went somewhere. Why are you even here? That's what the question is. Why are you here? You had a silver spoon, but I'm sure there's a history there too. There's a reason why he did that. But like I said, I done ran people like that before that came from something, even in treatment. I'm saying, well, your family is this and that. Why are you here? What were you trying to prove? Why are your friends the opposite of who you are? You hang with all these people that don't really they come from poverty, and you will be hanging out with them. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but I'm trying to understand why all your friends like this, and you're over here with a silver spoon. What I don't get it, so I'm trying to understand this. And then they start talking, and it's like, oh, so people were talking, putting you down because you came from something, and you fell into that. Well, the reason why they putting you down, because guess what? They wish they were in your shoes, and now you done put yourself in their shoes. So it kind of works that way.
Yeah, if you guys can just imagine, he was like a sophomore when he won the Heisman, 19, 20 years old, and everybody telling him how great he was. What was his name? Money or something like that. Women all over, parties all over. I mean, wherever he went, he was the man. And when you're 20 years old and you're right in the middle of that, and you're not a very good decision maker, and like you said, Terry, you're trying to prove something, man, that's a recipe for disaster. And I think ever since, and I think this was going on at A&M too when he was playing there. I mean, it's just gotten worse and worse for him. Hopefully he can turn it around and someone can reach him. But it seems to me like he's not the type of person that wants to be reached at this point. Because when, like the caller said, when your dad comes out and tells the media, like, man, my son needs help, otherwise he's gonna die. Man, that's wow. It doesn't get any more worse than that.
He's an adrenaline junkie. Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Hey, T, real quick, before we go any farther, why don't you do me a favor and kind of reveal who this caller really is, man? He kind of trying to be, low key, but why don't you tell everybody who this dude is?
That's Miles Harris, man. That's Eric's son, man, and very mature, man. Very mature for his age, man. And we're watching you. We're following your career too, man. And we know sometimes, you have your ups and downs in athletics. That's why we're doing this. And that's just a part of life, man. You just keep pushing through. You know what I mean? And your destiny, you're gonna get there whether you want to or not. But a lot of it is mental, man. Just stay positive, keep thinking, and don't forget who you are. I don't care what it looks like. Don't ever forget who you are. So yeah, man, we appreciate you calling in, man. And we want some more young people to call in because this is what we're trying to reach.
Exactly.
Really, we've had our turn. We've had our turn. We don't want you guys to go through what we went through. Because I'm telling you, I suffered for some years, man. For some years, and it didn't take much, to get me turned around if I had this information.
Exactly.
That's all it is. It's information. So yeah, man, we appreciate you calling in.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Sure.
Thank you guys for having me on. Man, I'm really, really enjoying this, you guys' radio station, and I'm gonna keep listening. And if something else comes up, I'll call again. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, man. You take care.
Okay.
All right, and that's a good place for us. We're gonna go ahead and pay a couple of bills with a commercial, and we'll be right back. The LET Group was established in 2016. Lance Conley, Eric Harrison, and Terry Robinson came together in agreement to build a model of integrity, hard work, and excellence. All three share a passion for health and creativity, using outside-of-the-box thinking. They all have backgrounds in sports and entrepreneurship. Lance and Terry have over 50 years of combined experience in the mental health field, and Eric has over 25 years of experience in marketing and business. They came together to build a service that would literally change lives. The LET Group offers seminars, books, and other tools to encourage, educate, and enhance the quality of life for those in need. For more information on the tools and resources that the LET Group offers, visit www.letgroup1.com. Again, it's the LET Group, which stands for Lance, Eric, and Terry. We are honored to be able to even talk about these subjects because we know they're going to change people's lives and help people to grow and understand some of the things that they may be going through. And again, we say this every show, and we want to make sure that we get this out there to you all. We are still going through stuff ourselves, and we are not ashamed to say that. As a matter of fact, it frees us and it liberates us. And it helps us to understand that why we do certain things that we do. We talk to each other almost every day, and it's almost like a mini counseling session. So Terry said something that was pretty powerful in the last segment. He said, man, it's all about the people that you have around you. So look at the people that you have around you. What are they saying to you? Are they the ones that's just saying, hey, just get over it? Oh, man, you being weak, even though you're feeling some type of way? And that may be, you may be about to go through or even in the midst of depression. And maybe you do need some help, or maybe you do need somebody to talk to. So, again, we're so glad that we can bring these things out and talk about these things. Terry, I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you, man. We got about 5 minutes left in the show. So Terry, what do you want to talk about in the last couple minutes?
Well, just kind of go back on what you were just talking about, environment. And, another easy way to look at it is just think of environment. What are you surrounded with, or who are you surrounded by? That tells you a lot right there. Your environment, because that's one thing we can all, if we're honest with ourselves, that's the other piece too. We can see when we're honest with ourselves. So you got to be really conscious of your environment. Sometimes we hang around the wrong places too long. And if you hang around the wrong place too long, eventually it's going to take over you. You know, and I think that's kind of how life works. You know, even in substance abuse, we used to always talk about, you know, this old Chinese proverb, and it talks about, you know, the alcoholic. You know, it's like, you know, the alcoholic takes a drink, and then the drink takes the alcoholic eventually. You know, so I know I screwed that proverb up, but that's what it then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the alcoholic. So it goes that way. The alcoholic takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the alcoholic. So it's a situation where I don't care who you are. You know, if you find yourself in that situation, if you don't get out, eventually it's going to overcome you. So you're not stronger than that alcohol, whatever it is that you're trying to escape from. We're never stronger. We just have to learn how to manage these things. And I think what eventually got Rashaan Salaam was, you know, the depression. You know, he probably thought he could get out of it. You know, I lay around a little bit, do what I'm doing, and eventually I'll be okay. But it wasn't. You know, he didn't get the help that he needed. You know, and it's unfortunate that we lost somebody that had potential to do more than he already did. Because I'm sure, you know, he provided a lot of love for a lot of people when he was on top. But when he hit his bottom, who was there for him, providing for him, other than his family? You know, so it's one of those things where, you know, we have to be really conscious of the environment that we're in, and seeking people that really have our best interests. And a lot of times when you're an elite athlete, that's, you know, sometimes we get away from that because you have people coming out of the woodworks, people that you don't really know, and people that's coming trying to get something off of you like a parasite. And I would put money on that he probably had more parasites than good people around him, you know, when he was doing well. And all of a sudden, when things didn't go well, that dried up. And that hurt. That's hurting, too. I'm sure he was hurt behind that because he's like, where are all these people now? You know, I did all this for these people, you know, where are they now? Because we go through that. You know, have you guys ever been in a situation like that when you felt like you were doing well and there was all kind of people? Then when things dried up, you know, where are these people? I don't hear from nobody. You know, that's a hurtful thing.
Yeah,
that's a hurtful thing.
Yeah, just, you know, these athletes, are they really, because, you know, I personally want to thank Miles for calling in because, you know, it definitely brings light, especially when you have someone that's his age. Because one of the questions, because, you know, you have a Rashaan Salaam, who, can you ask yourself, did he ever prepare himself for the transition mentally, emotionally, or physically during his high school, college, or even his short professional career? And I would guess the answer is no. And so that's why, you know, when you have someone like Miles, who's the age he is, ask yourself, if you're 20 years old out there, are you preparing yourself emotionally, physically, mentally to move outside of the sports? Because the stats do say that 88%, 90% of the college athletes do not go on to play beyond college. And I really don't think it's talked about or discussed enough to really open that up, because I think there's a whole new world out there for kids outside of sports, and they really have to prepare themselves. And they have to prepare themselves why they're in college. I think a lot of times if we wait too late, we sometimes get out of college and we might get into our profession and not even realize why we feel or some of the things that we're dealing with emotionally, because I don't think we took the time to recognize or prepare ourselves or educate ourselves about athlete transition stress. Transition is real, and people need to take notice and understand that each and every person at some form or some level goes through it, and you have to ask yourself, are you prepared to deal with it? And you know, that's what I have to say, and that's why I appreciate Miles calling in, because, you know, that's the age that I think it's important that we really reach kids and try to educate and prepare them to make that transition.
Yeah, we have to make this a part of that conversation. Like when we're talking about who scored 30 last night, who scored 50, or who scored 2 touchdowns, we have to make that a part of the same conversation. So it's not so overwhelming. You know, it's just like we're just talking. You know, you know, if you're an athlete, you need to be talking about this. You know, these people are dying. You know, how can we just not talk about that? We have to. Make it a part of the conversation.
And on that note, we're going to finish the show up. Amazing conversation. Thank you all for joining us. And also this show and all of our shows are archived. We're kind of running over a little bit now, but people are definitely going to listen to the end. So, again, please check out our website, www.letgroup1.com. On that website, you'll find our book, Athlete Transition Stress. Please pick that up. We always make references to that book during the show, as well as we have our monthly inspirational videos for a small subscription of $4.99 per month. You will be able to get some video counseling and some points shared by Terry Robinson and other things that will help you get through what could be ailing you. And that's what we're all about. That is our goal. That is our mission, is to give you exactly what you need so that you can be the best person that you can be. And on that note, we're going to sign off. Thank you, and we'll see you soon, hopefully next week. And happy holidays. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Lifestwists show. When you have a chance, please check out our website at www.letgroup1.com and see all of the things that we'll be doing over the next several weeks. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.